This is the island of Hispania. There's a border that divides the two nations of this island, with Haiti on the left and the Dominican Republic on the right. One side is 10 times richer than the other, and without even highlighting a border, you can see the difference between these two nations in their color. One side is mostly barren, and the other is luscious and green. It's clear something has gone terribly wrong in Haiti. Part of the explanation can be, as with much of world history, found in European colonialism. See, Haiti was a colony of France, and the Dominican Republic a colony of Spain. What's interesting is that the richest colony in the world in the 18th century was Haiti, by producing sugar, coffee, and indigo. The sheer scale of this enterprise was staggering. By the 1780s, they accounted for 60% of the world's coffee exports and 40% of sugar exported to Europe. Which sounds great on paper, but the thing is, this enterprise was fueled by enslaved labor. In fact, 85% of the population was enslaved, fueled by France's continuous import of African slaves. But at some point, Haiti had had enough, and eventually their war of independence came. The first successful one in history, actually. This revolution resulted in the deaths of an estimated 200,000 Haitians, the exodus of the French colonial population, and the widespread destruction of the country's infrastructure and plantations. Furthermore, a genocide against people of European descent was perpetrated at the order of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the first leader of independent Haiti. Finally, they were free. Sort of. The problem was, for decades following this independence, Haiti faced severe diplomatic and economic isolation, as the international community, led by France, refused to recognize Haiti's sovereignty. Under the constant threat of invasion and an international blockade, Haiti was coerced into paying an astronomical indemnity to its former colonizer, ostensibly to compensate France for the loss of its colony and enslaved people, amounting to 150 million gold francs, equivalent to $21 billion today. Haiti had no way to pay this, so they were forced to take out high-interest loans from French, American, and German banks to pay this. And over the next century, up to 80% of Haiti's national revenue went to servicing this debt. By forcing Haiti to pay exorbitant sums for over a century, the debt systemically drained capital, prevented investment in crucial infrastructure and institutions, and perpetuated a cycle of debt and underdevelopment from its very inception. By contrast, Spain's colony, Santo Domingo, now the Dominican Republic, was relatively neglected. See, Spain had much richer colonies at the time, notably Mexico and Peru, and by the 18th century, Santo Domingo was poorer and less strategic. So Spain imported less slaves and the economy was focused more on ranching and small-scale farming. When the Dominican Republic got their independence from Spain in 1821, they weren't forced to pay off a massive debt. Instead, they ended up being forced to pay off some of Haiti's debt. And that sounds a bit strange, but hear me out. The Dominican Republic was actually occupied by Haiti under President Jean-Pierre Boyer after the invasion in 1822. This led to a long and brutal 22-year occupation. When the Dominican Republic declared its independence, there was a brief period of power struggles, and they even voluntarily returned to Spanish colonial rule for a brief period between 1861 and 1865, before finally restoring independence. But then came the Americans. The US came in and wanted to stabilize the Caribbean for American interests, so they occupied Haiti in 1915 and the DR in 1916. In Haiti, the US took over fiscal control. Even after the US troops left, they still controlled Haiti's finances until 1947. Siphoning off about 40% of Haiti's revenues to keep paying debts to US and French creditors, which obviously didn't help Haiti's money situation. But the trajectories of these two countries really differed in the later half of the 20th century, because in this period, Haiti was ruled by the Duvalier dynasty, François Duvalier and his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier. For almost 30 years, they were responsible for massive corruption, repression, and economic mismanagement. Amongst some of the things they did were torturing and even killing dissidents, siphoning off foreign aid, and lack of investment in the development of the country. After the Duvalier regime fell in 1986, Haiti struggled a lot to establish a stable democracy. Multiple coups, United Nations peacekeeping missions, as well as international interventions became frequent in an attempt to maintain order. Unfortunately, to no avail. Even today, Haiti has no elected president or a fully functioning parliament, so armed gangs have been free to control large areas and the state's authority is minimal. Now, comparing this to the DR, they also had a dictator for a 30-year period, Rafael Trujillo, who ruled from 1930 until his assassination in 1961. His regime was also a bit violent to say the least, considering he ordered the massacre of thousands of Haitians living in the DR. His ruling was a bit different, however, as he basically ended up developing the DR into his own private business by setting up industries, building infrastructure, and even protecting forests to enrich himself. You might say, how is protecting forests a way to enrich yourself? Birdie just fell down. Excuse me for a second. I'm gonna have to open a window here. So those of you who don't know, Birdie is a CO2 monitor, and basically when it falls down, it tells me that I have to ventilate the room. It's been really helpful actually. It falls down pretty often. My concentration has improved and my sleep has improved, and yeah, it's been a really great addition. And I reached out to the guys who made this, and they actually gave me a link to you guys so that you can get this for 10% off and get an extra color, because they happen to have other colors as well. I really like the wood one as well. And you can get 10% off and an extra color, although the wood one does cost extra. But yeah, this bird is really cool. And yeah, so now it's back to normal. Now I can close the window again. I'll leave a link to Birdie in the description down below. And I get a small kickback for every purchase. So you will be supporting the channel as well by buying these birds. So yeah, check it out if you want. But anyway, back to why you would protect forests for your own good. Well, the reason you would protect a forest is because this guy, he basically owned the rights himself and could sell those rights to other companies in exchange for money. Though this was limited, and the protection of the forest did end up benefiting the DR quite a bit later on. Basically, these forests that were protected under Trujillo helped maintain the country's vital watersheds. This prevented soil erosion, which is important for a few reasons, but I will get into that a bit later because that has really plagued Haiti. Anyway, after his death, the country continued to experience turmoil. A civil war in 1965 led to another brief US military intervention, but authoritarian yet developmentalist leadership under Joaquin Balaguer, Trujillo's protégé, provided a measure of stability. From 1966 to 1978 and again in the 1980s, President Balaguer maintained order, albeit through authoritarian means, and continued economic modernization. By the 1990s, the Dominican Republic transitioned toward a more open democracy, and since 1996 it has held relatively free elections and peaceful transfers of power among competing parties. While corruption and clientelism persist, it's clear the Dominican political system has been far more stable and effective at governance than Haiti's. Today, the DR has a functioning democracy with regular elections, and recent presidents have managed the economy pragmatically. Political stability has enabled consistent policies, better security, and investor confidence, which is really important for a country, reinforcing a virtuous cycle of stability and growth. But let's compare Haiti and the DR in simple terms. Haiti has had over 30 coups since its independence, whereas the Dominican Republic has enjoyed continuous elected governments for the past several decades. A divide you can see in the important economic numbers. GDP-wise, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. GDP per capita sits at $2,100, comparable to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, far from the GDP per capita of the Dominican Republic that is about 6 times higher at $12,500. We know the history of why there's this discrepancy, but that's only part of the equation here. We need to also look at what the populations of these two countries work in. See, about half of Haitians work in agriculture, mostly subsistence farming, an industry not really known for its high pay. Whereas in the Dominican Republic, almost 2/3 of the workforce is in the services sector, encompassing a lot of tourism, which is an industry that is paying a lot more. Tourism really is important for the DR, and the prosperous tourism industry in the DR stands in stark contrast to Haiti's tourism, which has collapsed from 1.3 million tourists in 2018 to only 250,000 in 2024. Which makes sense since the US Department of State advises against all travel to Haiti. Tourists aren't really interested in getting kidnapped, robbed, or worse. But the divide between these two nations goes even further. Only 34% of Haitians have access to electricity, which, compared to the 99.6% of the DR, is really, really bad. I don't think I need to emphasize the importance of electricity to a functioning society, but just try and imagine the last time you had a blackout. Imagine living like that every day. The most visually striking difference between Haiti and the Dominican Republic is what I alluded to in the intro, and that is the environment. So let's take a look at this satellite image of their border, and you'll immediately notice the dramatic deforestation on the Haitian side. Haiti has undergone near total deforestation over the past 2 centuries. As a result, less than 2% of Haiti's original primary forests remain. While the Dominican Republic isn't untouched by deforestation, it still has about 40 to 45% forest cover and has reforested some areas in recent decades. The reason behind Haiti's insane deforestation can be explained by colonial exploitation. When French ships arrived to the island with slaves, they were then filled with Haitian wood and sent on their way. Later on, Haiti's government cut and exported timber themselves to pay off the French debt. In recent times, Haiti's impoverished population has relied on wood charcoal for cooking fuel, leading to more deforestation. The major issue with the loss of tree roots is that it reduces the soil's capacity to retain moisture, leading to severe soil erosion, particularly in Haiti's mountainous terrain. This looser soil is easily washed away by heavy rains, triggering destructive landslides and widespread flooding that destroy homes and crops. As topsoil erodes and dries up, it becomes less fertile, forcing farmers to clear even more land to maintain yields, creating a vicious cycle of environmental degradation and agricultural decline. If you didn't think Haiti has been unlucky enough, well, unfortunately not even nature is on their side. See, the Dominican Republic's side of the island receives more rainfall on average, and Haiti has more mountainous terrain and is slightly drier in the west, which is pretty bad for agriculture. The island of Hispaniola also happens to be one of the most vulnerable places globally to natural disasters. While both nations experience the same hurricanes, Haiti often faces more severe consequences due to factors like the extensive deforestation, which leads to increased flooding and landslides. So yeah, it's pretty bad. But I would like to end with the most striking difference between these 2 nations when it comes to their future, and that is the inflation rate. Haiti has had double-digit inflation for years now, and that simply means everything is getting much more expensive and salaries don't follow, weakening the Haitian gourd and hurting ordinary Haitians' purchasing power. On the other side of the border, the Dominican peso is relatively stable in comparison, but I think you get the picture now. The divergent paths of Haiti and the Dominican Republic are a product of history, leadership, and policy choices, as well as some geographic luck. The missteps, corruption, exclusionary elites, and foreign exploitation have hit Haiti especially hard. By contrast, the Dominican Republic, after its own missteps, managed to correct course toward democracy and growth in the late 20th century. The takeaway is that the fates of these 2 neighbors are linked, and the contrasts offer lessons. The importance of good governance, inclusive development, and sustainable environmental practices. Let's hope that one day Haiti gets on the right track. Okay, that's it. I just quickly want to mention that I recently launched my premium map store, mapstudios.com, and I just put up a bunch of new maps to the store. You guys loved the Japan map I made, so I've spent a long time making a bunch more in a similar style for a lot of other countries, as well as a satellite style map for each of these places as well. Premium frames are also available for every single map that you choose. They are made of wood and glass and are extremely high quality. And because I want you guys to enjoy these maps, I've made it so there's free worldwide shipping, and I also want to give you guys a 20% discount. Just use the code OBF at checkout. Just click the link in the description and check it out. This is the best way to support the channel, and it really means a lot. But that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.